Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming back from the exhibition. I know that there was a lot of great dairy innovation and snacks happening there. Hard to pull you away from that, but we have a really exciting panel here to end the day. And we're going to focus on health trends and consumer preferences in dairy. I'm so excited to have John, Donna, and PK join me. So John Crawford is the SVP Client Insights for Dairy at Circana, where he leads strategic partnerships with top dairy clients and industry associations. John has over 26 years in marketing and market research, providing expert insights on dairy trends from product development to category management, sharing his knowledge through webinars, podcasts, articles, and great events like this. So thanks for being here, John. Donna Berry, later I will introduce Donna as the only 6-year judge of the CMAB Real California Milk Accelerator. Donna is the editor of Berry on Dairy, which is a leading platform for dairy industry and insights. Actually, each year when we start the competition, we go looking for new insights and startups. So we actually start with Donna's website. So I don't know if I ever told you that. She has a background in agricultural journalism and past experience as editor of Dairy Foods magazine. She's a trusted voice in dairy processing, product development, and industry trends. We're so excited to have you here. PK. So PK is a category strategy manager at Sprouts Farmers Market, where she crafts strategic plans to optimize product offerings. With a background in retail and brand management, PK is known for her keen market analysis skills, helping Sprouts drive growth and enhance customer satisfaction. All right, so our panel today is health trends and consumer preferences. We've had a keynote to start the day. Almost every panel has mentioned different trends. Thinking about dairy specifically, what are the trends that come to mind first for you? And John, let's start there.
Well, we can always say lactose-free, but we're going to try and steer away a little bit of that. I would say protein is certainly a hot trend, and then low sugar. So not only sugar reduction, but also avoidance of artificial sweeteners. So, I think when sugar was, in particular, kind of culled out of yogurt, they went to artificial sweeteners, and now everybody's kind of backing away from that. So some of the claims that we're seeing, the biggest growth on are less sugar, no sweeteners, and then also natural sweeteners. So those are like the 3 biggest growing trends that we're seeing within claims. So there's a lot of trends in there. I would say that what we're going to see a little bit is there's a lot of upside still on the trends that are out there in dairy.
Donna.
Well, I just would like to add that I'm also a food scientist. So when I'm speaking right now, I'm going to be a little geeky. So one of the big trends with the lactose-free, I know we've talked a lot about it this morning, is there's 2 approaches: taking it out through filtration or breaking it down with the lactase enzyme. And that feeds into the sugar reduction trend, because when you break down the lactose, you're actually breaking it down to glucose and galactose, which are sweeter. So there's all these claims and label claims are talking about lactose free. It would be wonderful if the marketer communicated what the benefit is to adding the lactase enzyme into the product, that this is naturally helping reduce sugar in products. And then you mentioned protein, and I couldn't agree more. However, it needs to be promoted more. And one thing that I have not heard today was addressing the GLP-1 weight loss. And this is huge. Besides the fact, let me just say, I read this morning somewhere, a couple companies are already coming out and saying that it has definitely impacted their sales of sweet treats and snacks and, junk food. But when you're going on this quick weight loss diet, you're losing muscle mass quicker than you're losing actually fat. And so it's so important to be consuming high quality complete protein, which is what dairy is. And with that said, I actually did a scan of research that's out there. Do you know that I did not even realize this? There have been studies associating that the composition of milk, those 13 vitamins and 13 nutrients, together when consumed, we know that it promotes satiety, but how it's promoting satiety is it actually leads to production of GLP-1 hormone in the body. So it's actually a natural way of helping you lose weight. And I think that more research needs to be funded in that space. I'm really excited about it, but it seems to me like that is a growing trend and one of those need states that you mentioned earlier that needs to be addressed.
PK.
Yeah, I mean, I as a in the forefront of the customer-facing retail, especially at Sprouts Farmers Market, where we're one of the largest and fastest growing health food stores, where our motto and words to live by are trying to help people live and eat better. So they come to us, and we're seeing that high protein is definitely top of the list. And what's really exciting for someone who's a dairy purist as myself is whole fats. So the higher the fat, the better the sales, quite frankly. And it's really exciting to see because people are consuming more whole milk dairy products, and that's just really great for innovation for the future.
Love that. I think one of the things that was mentioned a few times throughout the day was this almost like return to natural or return to clean label. I'd love to get your thoughts on the sort of label influence and how that's driving trends, and maybe PK, start with you given the role Sprouts plays there.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, labels are very important to us, and I do work on the private label team, so that's something that we talk about on a daily basis. Our consumers are really looking for the attributes, right? That's it. So it's more than just the label. It's more what's behind the claim and the logo that you're going to see on pack. So what are the attributes that our customers are looking for? And the high protein is again one that's going to be called out quite a bit. Lactose-free has been becoming a faster growing claim that is being put on pack, but also organic, right? Like just going back to organic dairy, which I hope doesn't start to dwindle, but organic is really important because that just speaks to a cleaner label, right? It's trust from the consumer because they know that the soil is being treated well, and the feed that is going into the animals is a lot cleaner as well. So, yeah.
And Donna, what do you think about that sort of return to wholesome?
Well, twofold. First is there has been research done that we talked a little bit earlier, or John did, about extracting the bioactive peptides and the various nutrients from milk because they're associated with everything from building immunity to assisting with sleep. But there has also been a lot of research done, and I'd like to see more in that space, of consuming the whole milk product and how those components work synergistically together. And I think that's a pretty exciting space as well. And then regarding labeling, and I was at a transparency conference, it's probably been a month now, kind of time just been flying. And it was really interesting. They had they recruited 5 consumers that consider themselves to be foodies. And this was not dairy specific. This was across the food industry. And they had a panel interview. They were on stage. They had no idea what they were going to be asked. And some of the most amazing feedback scary thing is that they all thought that there are still things going into foods that aren't declared on the ingredient label. And all of us in the audience were like, oh my God, I can't believe you think that. But they wanted QR codes on everything so that they can scan it at the grocery store and read about stuff. And they want to know about the farmers, the practices, and they want to hear from real people who are producing these foods, and they're okay with influencers who are, especially our diva here, Dairy Diva in the audience, but the consumer wants more information. And one last thing is they also said that don't make up any more claims or labels or certifications and put it on the package. There's too many out there already. It's confusing to them. They said, just get down back to the basics and let us know. And I thought that was really fascinating. And when there are too many labels on stuff, it actually makes them a little fearful, and they'll put it back because they think we're trying to pull one over on them.
Yeah, and I think that might lead to the sort of simplicity, right? Like Whole Foods, things you recognize right away. And John, what do you think?
Well, I think there's a lot to unpack here. I would say, just look at, if you want to look at plant-based, we don't want to talk plant-based, but if you want to look at plant-based and what they're trying to do to clean up their labels. When I was at Crystal Farms, we did an ethnography with folks on milk, and we were actually in their homes, and when we're having them go in the refrigerator, and they were talking a lot about how almond milk was so much better than dairy milk. And we asked the mom to go look at the label, and she looked at all the ingredients in the label and all the difficult to decipher ingredients, and she started to cry, not realizing how that product was not clean label, right? And everything that had to go into it. And I think that has impacted plant-based. I mean, certainly pricing has impacted plant-based, but I do think that lack of clean label it has. And when I was at Land O'Lakes, they came up with a tagline for Land O'Lakes, which was "Where simple goodness begins," and that was really around just the simple ingredients in butter, as compared to, at the time, margarine was very, very hot, and country crock was very big. And to find out that if consumers are embracing that, just look at the categories within the Dairy 15 that are declining, and that is margarine and spreads and processed cheese. Those are the two categories that have continued to decline. They had a brief resurgence in COVID, and they continue to decline as consumers walk away from less, natural foods and more processed foods.
One of the things we talk about a lot, and obviously today the theme of the Accelerator is health and wellness. And so I started to think, in a previous competition, we had functional foods, which was a play off the same thing. When you think of functional foods and trends, what comes to mind in terms of where that puck is going, right? Like, where is functional foods? Was that something that has passed us, or is it just the beginning of this idea? And maybe, Donna, I'll start with you.
I think it's twofold. There are some products that consumers are embracing the addition of nutrients and bioactives to get that extra functionality. And that's by far beverages and maybe a little bit in the bar space, but functional beverages are off the charts, and it's kind of crazy how far people are pushing the envelope with those. But functional beverages, but when it comes to, and I mentioned this a few times, the whole food and how it works synergistically. I'll give an example really quick. Just, you said margarine, and it made me think of something. As a food scientist, when I took Food Science 101 in 1985 in college, and so that tells you my age. I remember we were learning about making margarine, and I just found it so fascinating because I kept thinking, if you're taking an unsaturated product and you're saturating it, it's got to be just as bad. Well, we found out it's worse. It's trans fat. So I like to take a step back and look at some of these ingredients that are being made today, these concentrated plant-based proteins. And don't get me wrong, we need more sources of protein in this world, but pea protein, it's in everything. And you're concentrating other components of that in that ingredient. And lectins is the big one. And so I think the whole pea has more value in it than, the whole food and what it brings to you versus some of these extracts that are being put into processed foods, ultra-processed foods. You can't say that a plant protein isn't one of the most ultra-processed foods. I grew up never knowing peas had protein. Now it's being made into milk. Liquid beverage.
It makes it better if you whisper. That's good. So PK, on your side, what functional foods, Whole Foods, like how are you thinking about this when you're thinking about it from a Sprouts lens? Because there is this sort of fine line of how do you make something functional and add things to it, but also keep it simple?
Yeah, that's something that, we discuss quite a bit, especially when we're looking at product development and talking to different suppliers. But I mean, I have to just applaud the trend of actually going back to real dairy, because that is a nutritious and nutrient-rich food, right? I mean, or liquid. And so there's your back to functionality just from the get-go, because you're going back to real dairy, right? When it comes to some of the functionality that we're seeing added, the omegas and the DHAs are toying around and adding into milk and lower sugar options. But do I think we're going to see mushroom powder in milk? No. But I am also very happy with the movement of using whey, which is a terrible byproduct, or delicious rather byproduct, as the source of protein in a lot of these beverages and the protein powders that we're seeing. So whey is really going to be, I think, the forefront of the protein source as a functional additive in all these cross-functional categories. So we're super excited to see how dairy is going to play in to be the functionality driver for the rest of the categories.
I think one thing that struck me today from the keynote, Lauren Twigg was talking about milk has all the functional benefits already. Like it's there, the 13, all the things we've talked about today. But maybe we have a consumer education issue here, like a strategy of how do we let consumers know, right? And if you tell a consumer this is good for you and this is what's in it, it's not a TikTok positioning that may get through. I'm curious how you think about that education piece and maybe some strategies around it. John, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think we talk about, just for the record, John Talbot was the one who was talking about deconstructing milk, not me. I'm not that smart. So just make sure you guys know that. But when we're talking about, and I've been saying this to the dairy industry for quite some time, and you're probably tired of hearing me say this, there are so many benefits, but younger consumers in particular, don't know. When I did a session at our summit 2 years ago, and I put up an advertisement from the 50s on milk, and it listed all of the benefits of milk line by line, and it was beautiful. And it talked about calcium, it talked about vitamin D, it talked about all the vitamins and minerals. There were stories when I was growing up about whole milk. Young girls who drank whole milk had lower body mass than girls who did not. Those messages are kind of going by to me, there's some low-hanging fruit in terms of making claims. And when we start to talk about claims, on package, it's still really, really small. I mean, protein on milk makes up only 8% of dollar sales and only 4% of volume. So 4% of volume of milk sales is claimed protein. And that, I think, is a huge missed opportunity. Same thing with lactose-free, and same thing with no low sugar. And we'll talk about cottage cheese a little bit later, I think, because that's an incredibly great story. But even cottage cheese, 11% claim protein on it. And that's just missed opportunity, in my opinion.
Donna, what do you think?
Repeat the question, please.
Oh.
I don't know that I even answered the question, but that's okay.
I didn't think you did. That's why I want to hear the question again.
It was just such a good tease for later. We're going to talk about cottage cheese later. I was like, I don't know if I have a cottage cheese question. But
I'm going to talk about cottage cheese later.
Oh, I'm going to bring it back to you now. But no, Donna, I think the question was, this morning, Lauren Twigg was talking about all the different benefits, that the milk is this amazing ingredient, but maybe that we have an education problem, that a new generation does not recognize the benefits or why they should be drinking milk. And curious if you have any strategies around that education, or maybe how to talk about it differently.
Well, I'm going to kind of halfway answer it like you did.
Together, that makes a full answer.
I thought I answered it.
No, you were talking about claims. This is something that I think needs to be communicated to consumers much better. Well, actually, simply communicated. I'm not sure who is the person who originally had said this, but whenever I explain it this way, it resonates with consumers or with friends, with people, whatever. A stalk of corn has 3 cobs on it on average. We can eat the cob. We don't eat the peel. We don't eat the whole part. We eat the kernels, and many of us don't even digest those kernels very well. And the rest of that stalk, what happens to it? It's cow feed. It's animal feed. Or the grass that grows on non-arable land that our cows are eating. The original plant-based food is grass-fed milk. They're taking that grass, they're taking that corn stalk, things that we as humans cannot consume. Those mammals are consuming it and producing milk, which is the product that we can consume, and turn it into so many different innovations. And that, to me, is just as critical of a message to explain that story to people, as is the nutritional content. And I agree with you full-heartedly. Kids have no idea anymore the correlation, youngsters, of calcium, and they probably don't even know why vitamin D is added to milk anymore, and that message needs to be explained. Again, on a QR code, scan it and tell me why it's in there, and I'll be okay with it.
PK, what do you think? Is there anything in terms of like strategies to educate new consumers about the value of dairy?
Yeah, there's so much work that I think needs to be done. I think just the stripped down, simple benefits of all of the nutrients that are in milk. Just turn it around, right? What's on the nutrition facts panel? What does it all mean, right? I don't think anyone's telling that story, and I think it's important for especially consumers of the younger generations who are large consumers of fluid dairy and dairy products. They need to know that these nutrients are essential for our bodies, right? And then the other portion of it is taking it back to the land, as Donna said. Animal welfare practices, right? Like that's where it starts. That's where the milk comes from, and how farmers approach their ladies who are producing such nutrient-rich foods for us, And I think a lot of those stories still need to be told, and I think the consumers are listening. So I think it's our job as professionals in the dairy industry to continue to engage our customers and really educate them as much as humanly possible.
If I could just jump in, you had mentioned nutrient dense. And think about what Chobani did to the yogurt industry. They flipped the whole category from being a diet food, right, to being a nutrient-dense food with a completely different flavor and texture profile. That is a story that we should all be aspiring to. So in dairy, you flipped a category from being a diet category to being a nutrient-dense category. And that, let's all learn a lesson from that.
Yeah.
And I'll jump on one more. And I think we talked a little bit about this beforehand. What were our dried ingredients and dairy ingredients, the whey, the non-fat dry milk, all the bioactives, caseinates even. I mean, so many are out there. I've done quite a bit of work with U.S. Dairy Export Council on trying to grow those ingredients overseas because it's cheaper to ship dry than liquid products or finished products. But what disappoints me often is how these ingredients are in products, and the only way you know it is by reading the ingredient statement. And it seems to me that a lot of dairy ingredient suppliers, which I think some of them are here because many of them are farmers and co-ops, should be working with the companies that are using these ingredients to better promote their addition. I know that some of the products we're going to judge today are using dry dairy ingredients. And sometimes it just says, the protein content or this beverage, it has protein in it, but they're not talking about what those ingredients are, where they come from, how they're sourced. And that's a great opportunity.
I love it. All right. We're going to open up to Q&A from the audience. We're going to have a microphone. So be ready, but I can't let it go to the audience yet because we have to hear about cottage cheese.
All right, cottage cheese. So cottage cheese is a category that was in the declines, right? And it's a very small dairy category. And we did a lot of work when I was at Michael Foods working on potatoes, mashed potatoes. And what we found was consumers who liked lumps in their potatoes liked lumps in their potatoes. Consumers that like creamy mashed potatoes would not eat lumps. So there's this thing about lumps, right? And if you look at tapioca and you look at cottage cheese, there's certainly that texture component to it. Bring in TikTok, bring in the social storm of adding use occasions to a protein-rich product. And that is a lesson I think everybody needs to also learn, and that is, think from an innovation standpoint. Yes, you can improve the product, you can improve the process, you can improve packaging, manufacturing, communication, all that kind of good stuff. Think about finding one more use occasion in the home for a product, because that rose an entire category. Cottage cheese is the second fastest growing category in all of food and beverage. It was the first, and it is sustained for now about 2 years, and it's up in dollars and it's up in volume. And that is a story that I think everybody needs to get behind, because think about use occasions in the home. Get one more use occasion and you can grow an entire category.
And I'd like to add to that, just because all of that has happened and is taking place without there being too terribly much innovative on the product side. I am in shock at these huge tubs of cottage cheese that you're not just finding at club stores, that you're finding at mainstream stores. They're like 1.5 gallon size, or they're maybe gallons, I don't even know, but they're huge tubs of cottage cheese, and this is just regular, either small curd or large curd, 2% or whole milk. I don't really think there's much activity in fat-free cottage cheese because those words do not belong in the same sentence together. But it's just the plain old stuff, but it's the way of using it, new, like you're saying, new use occasions, blending it, spreading it. I'm not even going to talk about what else people are doing with it, but it's also the original high-protein dairy food that everyone, and we're not saying that either, and that's something that needs to be said, the original high-protein dairy food.
Well, they're making ice cream with it.
Well,
And if you haven't tried it yet, I would definitely recommend it. Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're seeing it, right? We sell a lot of cottage cheese, and I'm happy for it because it's great for the gut. It's also a high protein product, and it really promotes California dairies, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of the greatest byproducts that could have been created, and especially for a retailer when there's trends on TikTok for it.
I'll give you one more use occasion example. So for a butter category, for stick butter, my son and his girlfriend, who are millennial and Gen Z, however you want to slice it, they slice a pat of butter off and put it in their soup. Like they're adding a creamy texture to their soup. That is another use occasion for butter. That is to get another, tablespoon of butter put in every meal with soup, if you play it that way.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting. Every time I do one of these, I learn something or am caused to think of something I've never thought of before. I did not realize people are so passionate whether their potatoes are lumpy or unlumpy, and now I'm going to think about that the rest of the day. Is there anybody in the audience that has a question? Megan has a microphone for you. I'd love to make this a little more interactive if there's anything on your mind. There's one right behind you over there. Come back, yeah.
I have multiple people coming in. Just wondering the trends of people making food at home, right? Not eating out, wanting to create these things and become inventive with their products, have it be dairy or sea moss or whatever is trending. Do you see that trend continuing in the sense where people are now, I mean, we've already discussed looking at labels for things that they can actually pronounce as they go further?
Yeah, let me take that real quick because at Circana is now Circana and not IRI or NPD because it was the culmination of bringing those two companies together. And NPD had the food service side of the business, and IRI had the retail side of the business. When we look at percent of eating occasions at home versus away from home, it was trending at about 83-17, somewhere in there, 85-15. COVID hit, it goes up to about 88% of meal occasions eaten at home. It has hung in there at about 86% since COVID, and it just last month ticked up to 87%. So it's with prices that are hitting at food service, retail prices kind of, I won't say they're coming down, right, but they're easing. That trend is absolutely happening, and I think the good part of a pandemic, if there is a good part of a pandemic, is that it forced millennials and Gen Zs to learn how to cook.
And that's the biggest thing is demystifying the kitchen, right? It's learning how to cook again. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, too, that once people got back into the kitchen, now they've recognized all the ways to explore that and all the fun of, and I think you might have asked the question earlier of the barista saying that you started to get into that and like you get to explore what is it like to make my own version of a latte and take it to the next level. It's almost like if you start to explore wine, right, you get into something. So I think it's a huge trend.
Just one more thing, sorry. We do a home audit. We have a group on the National Eating Trend side that has folks that talk about what they do at home, and we do a kitchen audit study where we look at what appliances are being used. Air fryers boomed in a big way. Ice cream makers boomed in a big way. So start to think again about how can you use dairy in an air fryer? I don't know, but think about use occasions. Think about preparation occasions.
That sounds dangerous, actually.
Cheese curds.
Cheese curds. There we go.
You go.
Halloumi.
If anyone does have a question, just raise your hand. We'll bring you in. But there's one up here. Sorry, Megan, you're going to get some exercise.
I'm an athlete.
Megan beat me at the Dairy Dash today, so she should be tired. She'll be slow on the way up.
So this is maybe an oddball question, but you mentioned earlier alcohol sales are going down. People are consuming alcohol less. Is that good in terms of drinks that are being made with dairy products of any kind, or is it just not helping at all?
Is that me?
Yeah.
You want to talk alcohol?
I was just going to say, I think there's a huge downside to it because the sugar consumption has gone skyrocket with a lot of these beverages. And, with alcohol, because I like wine, with alcohol, for the most part, you kind of know your limit because of the effects. But these non-alcoholic beverages, I've seen people have like a 6-pack of something that's in these mocktails, but you look at the sugar content on them, it's off the charts. So it's really no different than drinking a 6-pack of soda, of cola, with some of them. And some of them are even higher. It's a lot of sugar that is being disguised, I guess. And I think that there's going to be an issue there, but that's just me.
For alcoholic consumption it peaked, it went up at the pandemic, tail end of the pandemic, right? It stopped early, and then ice cream and novelties and alcohol all grew as we were kind of sequestered at home for longer periods of time. It has come down a little bit, that's true, and it has waned a little bit. I would say it's still an opportunity, right? Getting milk, the dude, right, drank White Russians, we need to bring the White Russian back so we can get milk into the bars, right? That can happen. That can absolutely happen. So I would go for every opportunity to get milk into products that consumers are eating and meeting them where they are.
And I think it's the added occasion idea, right? Is like what's a new occasion, a new opportunity for milk. And I know like very high-end bartenders have always used milk for multiple drinks beyond the White Russian. And I think we've had contestants in the past that have made unbelievable ready-to-drink cocktails that had milk in it. So I think it is an opportunity.
And cream liqueurs. I mean, just, or ready to drink eggnog, which I guess eggnog is all ready to drink, but why aren't we selling them in single serves with a little bit of whatever you put in there?
Hooch.
Hoot. Yeah. I like that. But that's it, yeah.
Sorry, I did want to add just one more thing about the alcohol sales going down. As a representative of the millennial generation, I would like to say, I do think that we're paying attention to our health, and we're just seeing that, like, if we're going to be consuming beverages on a social occasion, then why does it have to be something that's going to make me feel like garbage the next day, right? It could be something that is just as fun, could be functional, which in most cases, a lot of them are. Those trends are really growing at rapid speeds, quite frankly, and not necessarily sugar-loaded. But, there's better ways to be social and feel better the next day rather than feeling like garbage. So I do think that, there's definitely a space for milk in some of these cocktails, or milk byproducts, AKA whey. And just functionality that is going to continue to grow, whether that's in alcohol or without. So
I think one piece there that could be interesting too is if anyone knows of the water brand Liquid Death, right? Like, it basically is like, looks really cool to drink it in a bar, and became this huge thing, right? And so maybe there's an opportunity for milk with a ready to drink, or something where it looked cool that maybe didn't have alcohol in it. I remember a company we got exposed to named Slate Milk, and those guys, I remember talking to them. They were young guys, they're right out of school at the time, and they looked like they would probably go to a bar and have a lot of drinks. And just not to make a generalization, and they were like, no, like, we don't drink at all, like, and we're looking for a healthier way, and you know what we miss? Chocolate milk. And like, one of them had a lactose intolerance. And so what they did was they made a really good lactose-free chocolate milk, and then they branded the can. Just looked cool. Like, it was like, looked like something you want to open, and their sales are unbelievable.
The simple thing, a glass of wine, a beer, that's it. No gummies here, but it's true that you guys are doing the gummies.
Look, from lumpy potatoes to gummies, I think we've covered it all. I want to thank all of you for joining us. A great panel. Thank you all for all your insights.